A lot of people are confused by what's going on in the Middle East, and they have no idea why on earth this part of the world has become such a nightmare for us who live and come from the Middle East and the rest of the world. Now, I've got immense knowledge and experience, and I'm going to break it down for you. First of all, hi there. My name is Sertip. Sertip is a Kurdish name with the letter P in it. When I lived in Iraq as a child, the soldiers at the checkpoints used to laugh at me and mock me in front of my father, forcing me to say my name with the letter B because P doesn't exist in Arabic. I survived the Iran-Iraq War and the Gulf War and the invasion of Kuwait. My brother and sister starved to death. I nearly died twice. I take medicine for my aches and pains and bow legs and childhood rickets and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm going to tell you what happened. People say that Iraq after Saddam was worse. No, you're wrong. Saddam brutally massacred 1 million people in Iraq who could think for themselves and speak for themselves and who had any bright idea. Saddam was the reason why Iraq failed, because he got rid of anyone who could do anything good and who he saw as a threat. He unalived 182,000 Kurds. He created the G-side against us with the chemical weapons, etc. When they got rid of him, guess why Iraq failed? Because of the Iranian regime. You know, the one that everyone's talking about right now? And the ones that people are de facto defending by saying they're against war and telling America to stop the attacks on them. Well, that regime filled the vacuum that Saddam left behind with the 1 million Iraqis that he unalived who could have actually done something good in the country once he was gone. And the Iranian regime is the reason why Iraq failed, because they started to militarize and weaponize all those militia groups in the south of Iraq, who are, by the way, the very same groups right now that are over on the other side in Iran, brutalizing and murdering the people of Iran on behalf of the regime that they know if it collapses, they will collapse with it too. So the Iranian regime, who gave weapons and money over the last 20 plus years since Saddam is gone, is the reason why Iraq is such a mess. And some of those missiles, by the way, are coming from the south of Iraq, in case you missed it. For example, the ones that have been hitting Kurdish civilian areas in Iraq, the missiles have come from the militants who are backed by Iran from the south of Iraq, the same country. Yeah. Now, let me now expand a little bit. People want to blame Israel for everything, right? They want to blame Israel and America. Israel and America, that's what they're obsessed with. And everyone's got their favorite people, the Palestinians, that they want to free, right? Guess what? The rest of us want to be free too. Guess why we can't be? Because of all the dictators and tyrants who brutalize us in the Middle East, but they say they support the Palestinians. The dictators and tyrants who say free Palestine in the Middle East are brutalizing the rest of us. The Kurds, the Iranians, the Baluchis, and all the other groups, right? People that you've never heard of, people that you'll never hear about, like the Chaldeans, like the Druze, like the Alawis, and so on. And if people really want to be consistent in their support for the Palestinians and their rights to self-determination and freedom, and they want to hold Israel to account, let's at the very least hold all the other nations in the Middle East to account, because they were all created at the same time on top of other people who were then brutalized. Now, you want to say, but the Palestinians have suffered the most. How about this? The Al-Nakba, which the Palestinians talk about, in which 700 or so thousand of them were basically left homeless when Israel was created, is the very same thing that the Jews went through when 800,000 of them were thrown out of the rest of the Middle East, like in Iraq and Syria, and they were left homeless with nowhere else to go to but Israel. And if you really, really want to support a group of people who've been brutalized, how about all the minorities in Turkey? The Armenian G-side, which wiped out 1.5 million of them, is the reason why Turkey was then able to dominate those areas and create a country on top of it. What about the Assyrians? What about the Chaldeans? What about the Pontic Greeks that were thrown out when Turkey was formed? They were left homeless. Nobody talks about the right of return of the Pontic Greeks to their ancestral homeland in Turkey. Nobody talks about the right of return of the Armenians or the Kurds to their homes. No. And what about in Syria and Iraq, when Jews, Kurds, Christians, and so many others were wiped out to create those countries? What about the fact that Kurds in Syria were not even granted citizenship since the day it was created, being left homeless in a country that they've been on since before those people who took it all away from them even existed? The Kurds not only didn't have citizenship in Syria all that time, but they couldn't access education or healthcare. What about in Iraq, where Saddam literally made it illegal to be Kurdish? What about in Turkey, where we're called Mountain Turks? In 1984 in Turkey, they even tried to make it illegal to think in Kurdish. The only reason why the law didn't pass in parliament is because there's no technology to decide what you're thinking in your brain and what language you're thinking in. And the list can go on and on and on. So what I'm trying to say here is, if you really want to support the Palestinians, the way you're going to do that is by supporting everyone else in the Middle East to also get their freedom. Because guess what? Our dictators and tyrants, people like the former dictator Saddam, Bashar al-Assad from Syria, and the psychopaths, the Ayatollahs of Iran, and all these other tyrants, they are not going to be the ones to save the Palestinians while they're busy brutalizing their own people. That's like a patient who's in desperate need of surgery going to a doctor who kills his own patients back home. Okay? So, to cut a long story short, the Palestinians deserve their freedom, but the Israelis also deserve their security. And not everything is to be blamed on Israel and America, because all the other countries in the Middle East were created through brutality in a brutal period of time when it was built on top of other people. The borders were arbitrary, people were divided, minorities were persecuted all over the place, including many hundreds of thousands of Jews, incidentally. So there you go. If you want to help the people of the Middle East, be consistent, be fair, don't be a hypocrite. Don't just choose one group over everyone else. Don't turn a blind eye to everyone else in Iran and Kurdistan and Iraq and Turkey whilst picking your favorite people, the Palestinians. Don't say that we're Zionists when we fight our tyrants and want freedom, and then call the Palestinians freedom fighters when they're committing extremist acts and T-wordism. And for those who talk about October 7th, right? The whole Middle East has been going through one big October 7th for a very long time on all sides. And the only way the Palestinians will have freedom and peace is if they make peace with Israel, and if we stop blaming Israel for everything and hold our own dictators and tyrants to account, like the Iranian regime, who fund all the terrorists and extremists across the Middle East, and including in Palestine, that leads to all this war and devastation and destruction. Thank you very much. Have a great day, and love and respect.